that's your flat bit, drill bit. You can make that out of any bit of steel if you want, preferably a hardenable one. You can do it out of mild steel if you're just drilling through wood, like softwoods and stuff. You can do it through harder woods, but you'll probably have to regrind it and keep sharpening it as it will dull. But I just made this one from some mid-carbon steel, so I could water quench it to harden it. I've not tempered it, and it's just a bit hard, and it's come out fine for cutting brass. Basically, yeah, it just did the job. I needed a certain size diameter drill to bore a hole. I didn't have a boring bar, so it was just easy to make one of these. Well, you just get a round piece of steel bar, forge it flat on the end, like a spade bit, I guess. Mark out where you want your nominal diameter to be right on the end, or the edges here, the corners, and you'll grind it to that, and you'll grind a kind of V triangle profile, and that angle will depend on the what material you're cutting. So if you're cutting softer materials like wood, timber and stuff like that, you might want it more acute, whereas if you're doing metal, you might want it more obtuse. Brass, you want a more acute angle than for harder metals like steel. This one could probably be a bit more acute. I didn't measure it, but if you get any, you can look in any drill guide book or engineering book or anything like that, and you can easily find what angles to grind your drill bits to for different types of metals. It's cutting at these points here and these edges here and these edges here. Once you've got your spade bit profile ground out, I usually grind the angle on there that way, because it's turning this way, so you want it sloping downwards that way because it's cutting that way. And so I'll do that on both sides, and then sides, and grind the angle on them. Grind the angle on that. It's a slope again to the way it's going to cut, and that wants to be sharp edge again, and that will all depend as well. All these angles will depend on the type of material you're cutting as well. So you can get away with doing a sort of average for them. Like I said, I haven't measured any of these, I've just done it by eye, because I've ground that many drill bits now. I just sort of know that it will work, and if it doesn't, then I'll just adapt it, maybe cut it to a steeper angle or a lower angle. Another important factor is you need, because when you forge it out it's going to be tapered and that's not going to cut right, so you want this top edge as well, or top face rather, ground. So you want that ground to 90 degrees to this section, if that makes sense. Instead of it being tapered like that from forging, you're going to grind it out so it's flat, or even with a hollow so it breaks up like that. For you can do that for brass, for example. Not too much, because it might snag and catch the material. So 90 degrees is fine. So they're very simple. Just a piece of bar, forged out, profile cut out, filed or ground, then file or ground all the angles on and the flats, and that's it. And they're really easy to resharpen, and not that a regular twist drill isn't, but you can just make these if you haven't got a specific twist drill to any size you want, all as long as you get the right diameter fixed here. And obviously it wants to be central, or I guess parallel, consistency in conjunction with the main bar, or what will be the drill bit shaft, I suppose. So this distance has got to be, you know, equal distance away from the main shaft at both outside peaks. I didn't really measure that. I didn't even think about that. It just came out pretty central. You can always measure that, but usually if it looks okay, if it looks pretty central, then it'll find its way in the hole. It'll find its center, and that's okay. If not, obviously you'll know about it, and then you can just adapt it. And that's not a big deal, because if you're making one anyway, then it shouldn't be any hassle to just fix that problem. So yeah, that's it. Flat drill bit made from some bar steel. My dad showed me that one. It's a good trick, good tip to know. Okay, you got your bar that you start off with. There's your bar. However long might you want it longer, because you can hold it. Forge it out. Splayed out there, that way, a bit that way. You know, the profile of it now is like this. Okay. See, you get the splayed out end of your bar, and we work out the diameter of what we want the nominal diameter to be for the hole that we're going to drill or bore. And let's say that it needs to be a little bit less than what we forged. We forged it a bit more than we need, so we just need to knock off these corners, bring them in, blend them into that bar where, you know, maybe it wants to be there. As long as we get that diameter correct, then we want to get the central point there. Oops, central point there. Then, depending on what material you're cutting, you're gonna have those angles cut into that triangle point there. Then we are going to grind or file the top of these, and it's going to revolve this way, so we want to have them going that way. That makes sense. And then it will cross over at the top at the peak there. See? So in profile at the moment is like this, with a little section for that triangle. Oops. So your profile is like this now, where you have put that triangle section here, and then we're going to cut the angle in like that all the way up to the center. So then the profile will then look like this. It will be flat there actually, and it will still be splayed out there, tapered. Do that on both sides, and then E, D, E. We are going to grind the sides at an angle. So as you can see from the top, like that. So grind them in. Right, so we've got our angle there, and now we've got our angle there. So we've created an edge here and one there. And then I'm confusing myself with this bloody thing, trying to make it easy for you to understand. Maybe it's not. And then grind that flat. So the profile of it is like this at the moment. That's our angle for the top, for that edge. And then you've got angle here for this edge, because we just ground that in. Yep. So now we want to do this bit. So we flatten it off here and on both sides. There. So then we're creating the edge of it more defined, because it might be rounded over from forging on this side to make a nice crisp edge. And because it's 90 degrees now, it'll cut into the material rather than if it's tapered like this, it'll just rub up against it and not cut it properly. It needs to have a peak, or well, 90 degrees or with a peak on it to cut. You know, that's an exaggerated point, but that'll cut better than that, if that makes sense. So that doesn't look confusing, does it? There's a step-by-step to produce your step-by-step to produce your flat bit, drill bit, jobby drill. So it's done.